Hello and welcome to this Festival Pro tutorial video. Today we're going to take a look at rolling over to a new year, how you get set up for your next event in Festival Pro, and just clearing out the old data and getting set up for the new. So there's a couple of ways to do this, and it does depend which package you're on. So I'll put some timestamps in the description below. Feel free to skip to the area that most applies to you. We'll start with the basic and starter packages, which do not have any archiving features. In these systems, what you would typically do is export any of the information that you might need to keep. You can do this either by going to section by section, so artists, and then export. Perhaps take this down in CSV format. Or you could always do an advanced search and bring up everybody in one and then do the same thing. Once you've exported your contacts, the next question will be what you do with them. Some people will leave their contacts in here and remove all the profile fields, so they're like the same contacts, blank information. This depends if you're working with the same group of people year on year. Other times you might keep your CSV copy to refer back to, but just have a nice clean system to begin your next year with. In terms of forms and workflows, these all stay and remain. So we're initially mostly talking about the contacts and then what you do with your calendars. So for example, my shows calendar here, I've got all of my events, and I get some options if I want to remove these from the platform, or if I want to move them forward and keep contacts attached to them. That depends, obviously, if we keep the profile fields in the artist themselves. So I'll make sure I am in config mode and go configuration, system reset panel. And in here we have a whole bunch of options that are going to enable us to clean out our system and set things up. So in here you can see the dates to restrict the calendars by. So obviously if you go to your shows or festival calendar, and these will be dates that's restricted to, as well as any kind of pop-up grids. You can remove from the system any of your shows, or you can move them forward or indeed backwards. So if you move them too far forward, you can type a negative number and that will bring them back. You can remove from the system people's schedules, move those schedules, and then down here you can select the items in the past that are only removed. If you started already putting some shows in for the new year and you want to keep those, you could choose this to make sure they are left. The section below lets you clear out your forms. This allows you to remove either the registration and the contact filling in the form, or the registration and the entire company. So we can say the artist agreement, we would like to just remove all of the registrations from that. And then over here at the top we've got the template. These are the mail merges that come in the platform. So anywhere festival dates is used, we replace it with the date of your event. So you can come in here and update any of this information that might need updating. Don't worry so much about these numbers for now, but we can help you with this if you do get stuck. But in essence, these are the updates for your forms and menu items. So if we are, for example, going to the menu and looking for all of our vendor applications, and that points to 5133 currently. That form ID is taken from the URL bar. So if I were to look at the artist form here, in the address bar it says the event ID is 5058, and that is the number if I wanted to repoint the artist advance. See here, 5058 is where it's pointing. So if I made a new form, I would update that. But typically you don't need to worry about this section. This is something if you get stuck with, just drop us a support ticket. We can update those to your new forms for you. And then down here you can choose what to do with your contacts. So earlier you should have taken a download of all of your artists and contacts in the platform. You can either choose to leave them in your platform and just reset perhaps profile fields. So if I were to do this, all the artist and vendor information in their profile would vanish, but they would remain as contacts in the platform. Great if these people, you often have returning artists or returning vendors. Or you can just have a clean slate and just remove these contacts from the platform altogether. If I now go down to reset, see this gives me system reset here. And now if I were to take a look at my artist list, you can see I've got nobody left in the platform. So that system reset has done its job, and you'll be ready to go for the new year in terms of your contacts. The other thing that's important to note is your forms themselves. If we go dashboard forms, Obviously, all of these in here will be reset to no registrations if you've removed all of the people, or if you're keeping people in there, perhaps the registrations are still there and you want to make a copy of the form for the new year. To make copies of forms, we can go into config mode, and in here you can also clear out any of the forms that you might not be needing by deleting them from your platform. Once you click on copy, you can see here the artist advance, for example. I can move this forward to 2027, save this. And now, because we've updated the form, it's also important to make sure we update where that form links from. So we would have to go to our email template, check that artist advance out, the email that we're going to send. And if I go to edit, obviously the link here is going to be pointing to our last year's form, our deleted form if you've removed it. So what we want to do is just make sure we relink that to our 27 form, and I can save that. So when we do send out the email for that, it's going to be pointing to the correct form. So next we'll look at archiving, which is a feature on Pro systems and above. Not to be confused with multi-events. If you've got multi-events, you'll know about that. You'll have to drop down over here for all of your events, and we'll get into that next. But let's have a look over what you would do on a Pro system. And much like the starter systems, it's recommended either way to take an export of any data that you might want to keep just on hard drive. You can go into Artist and View All, Export, and then just download this in perhaps CSV or Excel format. Do that for your other areas, or you could do an advanced search and just take everything down at once. But unlike the starter systems, you are not left with just the option of keeping or removing the contacts in your platform. You do have the ability to archive them so you can refer back. So let's have a look at, say, this one here. Let's take Crimson Notes. If I go to Profile Fields and General, you'll notice that you've got an Event tab. If I hover over the little icon, we can see here it says please only use this field when archiving, as it removes people from your live system. So if this is empty, that is a workable contact in your live system. That's where they are. If I come view all artists, you see them all here. However, if I were to change one of these, so let's just take the top one and put them into what I have called last year's event. Whatever it is, whatever last year's event was, that will live in here. If I save this, refresh, you'll see that they have now gone from my active system. To get back to any of your archived people, you would come into Dashboard, Advanced Search, and then we would search for the people who are in, say, last year's event. You can see them here. Let's just, for the time being, move them back to our live system by removing this and then saving. So what you would typically want to do is archive all of your contacts in the platform, and we can do this either by doing it section by section, Artists View All, and then you can go to Update All, General, Last Year's Event. If you use forms where you collect subcontacts using the Contact Collect field, it's very important to select Applied to Link Contacts. That ensures that you're not left with all the subcontacts of these companies left in your current system. So I apply that, and now we see that we've got no artists in our current platform, unlike our contractors who are in here, along with our vendors who are in here. So if we want to do this for everybody, we can just go Dashboard, Advanced Search, just hit the search button with no search criteria, and now I'll be able to come in here, update everybody to last year's event, apply it to all of their link contacts, and save this, giving me now a clean current year system as far as contacts are concerned. From here, you'll want to go into config mode, configuration and system reset panel. And then here you can update the various bits of information. We covered this earlier in the video, but just in case you skipped forward, you can set the event dates, move your shows forward, or using a negative number backwards in your calendar, or remove them from the system. Same with your schedule and volunteer shifts. And there's an option here to only remove items in the past. One thing you will have differently to the starter systems is an extra column here. So we can delete, say, all the registrations, and the contact filling in the form for any of these form entries, or we could delete the registrations and the entire company, artist, volunteer, contractor, or we could archive the form completely. And often people will archive the forms. Often it's good to do this on the form page itself if you're looking to make a copy of it, because you might want to make the copies first before you go through and archive them all, and we'll get to that in a second. Over here you've got system contacts, and we can delete and remove them or reset their fields. Often on pro systems none of this is necessary because you'll just have archived them and you're going to want to keep necessarily their fields on there. And at the top here is the templates. These are all the mail merges that we pull in various parts of the system. You can update your festival dates, site address, and things like that. So looking at the forms, we go dashboard forms. We can then go to any of these forms and copy them forward. So this might be our Artist Advance for this year, and we can click into copy, rename it for the new year, and then you'll have a blank copy of this in existence. You will then be able to take your old form and archive it. So you can see here we've copied this, and earlier we made a 2027 form. This one here we can then put into the archive. Under the forms, if we go into config mode, you'll notice that there is an option here for view archived forms. So in here we can find all of the forms that we've tucked away, all the forms we previously archived. If we go quickly into our main list of forms, and we'll just archive, say, the crew accreditation request form. You can do that here. You can see it's gone from here. Go into the archive. We can see that in here. If we want to bring that back, we can unarchive it, but it's useful to consider that an archived form and archived people will show up together. So if I click on the registrations here, we can see these registrations, and these are the people who are also archived. So archived people show with the archived registrations. If you were to leave this form unarchived, but those people had been archived, it would show the registrations, but when you click on it, you wouldn't see any of them. Same the other way, if we archive the form, but we don't archive the people, the registrations will show here, but when you click through, you're not going to see them. So ideally you want archived people who are filled in a form living also alongside the archived in the form. There's edge cases where that's not the case for various reasons, and in that case, you have to just make sure you run a search for all the people who are or are not archived, depending on which way you've set that up. The final step for this is to ensure that you have all your links set up correctly. So again, if we were to take, say, an Artist Advance and copy this forward to, say, 2027, save this. This form now has its own URL and it's its own form with its own registrations, which means any emails that we previously set up to this form, we want to update. And again, I know we went over this earlier, but we'll just do it again for the benefit of people who skipped ahead. And that means we just go emails and templates, edit the Artist Advance, and obviously this is the link that would be pointing to last year's form. So we quite simply get and update that to 2027, save that. And that should put your pro system in good stead for the new year. If you are on a multi-event system, you will have a little drop down in the corner here. Summer, conference, demo. These are our example ones, but you'll have all of your festivals in here, and we're going to want to keep these old ones as your archive, and we will then also look at adding new one for your new year. So to do this, you may have to contact us first. If you come to this screen under configuration multi-events, if you try to add an event and it doesn't let you, the chances are that you are restricted to a certain number of multi-events within your contract with us. So you would just have to get in touch with us for an additional one to be added on for the new year. But once you've got the extra credit for the what we call virtual systems, but the system within your system, your multi-event, you'll be able to click add event up here and quite simply fill in the details. And this could be anywhere that you like. Parking Palace, choose our dates for it. So 2027. It's quite a long event. You can set the default date. This is the date the calendars will open up to. Well, there's an archive date. Up here are all the mail merges of what we'll pull through to where. And then we can click on save. And you'll see that that has created a 2027 fest here. So let's just pop back to organizer mode. And here's my standard summer event that I was working on before, say last year's event. I can now go into my menu, click on 2027 fest. And here we have got a blank slate to start working from. This screen as well is where you update all of your pictures. So we can go into multi-events. And as you may have seen when we were setting this up, you can choose your logo, your background, and your e-ticket background. But should you need to change these as you go along during your event, you can come in here and just update in here for each multi-event. But I hope this video has been helpful in getting you to roll over to the new year, whichever package you might be on. Please do reach out to us and pop in a support ticket. There is always a free debrief session for all of our customers at the end of the year. You can let us know how you got on. We can sit down with you and work out anything we can do to improve your processes. We can help you with this reset, as we know pressing the big red reset button is sometimes a little bit scary. So do reach out, get in touch, and we'll see you on the next video.